2023 All-Section, Class A. Marco Accurso, Brewster. A 3-year player and 2-year two-way starter, Accurso was a force on both sides of the ball this fall. The 6-foot, 250-pounder was second on the team with 59 tackles and led the unit with 5 sacks. His 17 tackles for loss was among the best in the section, highlighted by the win over Greeley, where he had 5. James Arafig, John Jay Cross River. The captain of the Wolves secondary was Arafig, a lockdown safety who patrolled the middle of the field. He led the team with 4 sacks, 6 pass breakups, and 68 tackles. Arafig only allowed 37 yards on the entire season in coverage with no touchdowns, and is currently fielding several Division III college offers. Brian Bailey, Fox Lane. A highly touted two-way lineman, Bailey was one of the few 4-year starters in the region. A 2-year captain, Bailey forced teams to run away from his side for the last 2 seasons. This fall, he still had 67 tackles and 4 sacks in only 7 games. The 6'3" tackle has committed to play at NCAA Division III national finalist Cortland next season. Artin Balidimaj, Harrison. Pound for pound, Balidimaj was one of the most disruptive and unblockable forces in this section this season. He made a name for himself in the season opener, dominating up front in Harrison's emotional win over rival Rye. He had 48 tackles on the season, and despite relentless double-team pressure, he came up with 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and 11 QB pressures to help Harrison reach the Class A title game. Connor Bryan, Pelham. After developing into a standout on Pelham's 6-win team as a sophomore last fall, Bryan showed his maturity and leadership this season by accepting a position switch to the offensive line. Bryan quickly made an impact up front, anchoring that unit. He continued to be a force on the defense, leading Pelham in tackles and being a stabilizing force at linebacker. Kevin Butler, Clarkstown South. Butler had a workmanlike attitude in the South offense, posting over 1,000 yards rushing and receiving and scoring a combined 13 touchdowns. Butler was the catalyst on the defense as well, leading the team with 89 tackles, 16 of which were for loss. A 3-year varsity starter, Butler was the league linebacker of the year for the 2nd season in a row. Nick Greco, Somers. Sometimes it felt like there was a fight in the Somers defense for the players to make tackles, and more often than not, Greco won those battles. The senior defensive tackle posted 82 tackles this season for the Class A state champs, including a combined 31 tackles in 3 state playoff games. At only 5'11", 245 pounds, Greco managed to muscle up with the best of them and headline a defense that allowed only 2 touchdowns in 3 state playoff games. Joseph Krupe, Harrison. When the Huskies needed a big play on offense this season, they put the ball in the hands of Krupe, whether it was as a runner, receiver, or kick returner. He flourished in all 3 roles, posting nearly 700 yards of offense and scoring 8 total touchdowns, including 2 unforgettable kickoff returns for scores in the Section 1 championship game. He recorded 40 tackles and 3 interceptions on defense, helping Harrison go 9-2. DJ DiMatteo, Mayapack. A 2nd-year varsity starter, DiMatteo matured into his role as quarterback this fall despite heavy defensive pressure. He passed for 1,048 yards and 14 touchdowns, and he was even better on defense. The League Linebacker of the Year award winner, DiMatteo was among the team leaders in tackles. He will continue his career as a college baseball player, signing with Middlebury College. Alex Edenbaum, Horace Greeley. The resurgence of the Greeley football program back to Section 1 play centered around the grit and leadership of Edenbaum, who Coach Joe Kearns called the toughest kid we've ever had. Edenbaum displayed toughness on both sides of the ball, posting just under 1,000 all-purpose yards, rushing for 715, and scoring 8 touchdowns. He also led the Quakers on defense with 83.5 tackles. Colin Holder, Clarkstown South. The senior quarterback stepped his game up in a big way this fall, his 2nd as the starter. Holder completed 63% of his passes for 1,526 yards and 15 touchdowns, while also rushing for 532 yards and 6 scores. Holder, a multi-sport standout, had 5 touchdowns in a win over Horace Greeley and 3 in a victory over Pelham. Mason Kelly, Somers. Kelly stepped up into the role as featured back for the Somers offense on day 1, and he flourished. The junior led the team with 1,305 yards rushing and scored 22 touchdowns, highlighted by his 4 scores in the Section 1 championship win over Harrison. He had 5 multi-touchdown games in the postseason alone. A lacrosse star committed to Brown University, Kelly enters 2024 as arguably Section 1's best running back. Danny Koch, Mayapack. The show-stopping back and receiver thrived as the focal point of the Mayapack offense, going over 1,200 combined yards and scoring 11 total touchdowns. Koch ran for 984 yards, averaging 5.6 yards per attempt, and hauled in 23 passes. He returned a kickoff for a touchdown and intercepted 3 passes. Koch will play lacrosse at St. John's University. Colin Lamoureux, Brewster. The most productive two-way player for the last 2 seasons in the Brewster program was undoubtedly Lamoureux. He led the team in tackles again this season, posting 75 in 9 games, including 12 tackles for loss. He intercepted a pass and recorded 5 sacks, while also leading the Bears with 24 receptions on offense. Dante Lanza, Harrison. Another 3-sport athlete for the Huskies, Lanza emerged this season among the most versatile players in the Harrison program. Lanza spent time in every skill position this fall, including filling in as quarterback when needed. On defense, he had 47 tackles, 4 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, and he finished the season with a total of 6 touchdowns. Eddie Marr, Pelham. The senior stepped up when the team needed him most, taking over at quarterback this season and put the team on his back and led them to the playoffs. In just 4 full games at quarterback, Marr managed to post 712 yards and 6 touchdowns, including 2 touchdown passes in a win over Clarkstown North to help Pelham get to the Class A postseason. Sean Mannion, Eastchester. In just his 4th season ever playing football, Mannion worked to turn himself into an all-section player who the Eagles depended on both sides of the ball. Eastchester ran primarily behind him on offense, while opposing teams ran away from him on defense. Mannion posted 37 tackles and a team-high 5 sacks to key a defense that allowed only 11 points per game. Kieran McCloskey, Eastchester. McCloskey was a steady contributor all season for the Eagles, but took his game to another level in the playoffs. The standout defensive back set a single-season record with 8 interceptions, 3 of which came in the Section 1 semifinal against eventual state champion Somers. He caught passes from his own team too, hauling in 28 receptions for 331 yards and 4 touchdowns. James Minotti, Fox Lane. One of the most well-rounded pure athletes in the section, Minotti capped his football career in a big way. Also a basketball and lacrosse standout, Minotti was a 3-year starter and 2-time captain who, as a senior, made every call on defense. He led the Foxes with 83 tackles, 8 of which were for loss, and 4 sacks to go along with 2 interceptions. Dean Palazzolo, Somers. Only 1 sophomore made All-Section in 2023, and it was Palazzolo, the speedy wideout who broke out this fall for Somers. Palazzolo burst onto the scene in Week 0, piling up 232 total yards and a touchdown against New Jersey State finalist Ramapo, and that sent him on his way. He capped the year by scoring 3 times in the state championship game, finishing the year with 1,211 yards receiving and 14 scores on 67 receptions. Aiden Pompey, Clarkstown North. After playing sparingly last season, Pompey carved out a big role this year and went on to develop into a Section 1 player. Pompey was a versatile threat on offense, combining for over 800 yards rushing and receiving and scoring 7 touchdowns in 9 games. He was terrific in the return game as well and accounted for 40% of the team's offense and nearly 50% of the team's scoring. Nick Russo, John Jay Cross River. The Wolves were a team built around their leaders on defense, and Russo was at the center of that. The senior linebacker was able to do things on every corner of the field, contributing 47 tackles, 16 for loss, with 3 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and a touchdown. He was a reliable target at tight end, catching 17 passes and a score. Gianluca Santarelli, Harrison. The veteran two-way lineman was the anchor of a Harrison defense that carried the team through most of the season, posting 5 shutouts. Santarelli, who was voted the league's most outstanding offensive lineman, led the defense with 68 tackles, including 12 for loss, with 6 sacks and 9 QB pressures. Aiden Schultz, Eastchester. The senior 3-sport star had never played quarterback in his life until this season, and he turned out to be the most productive at the position in the conference. Schultz passed for 1,331 yards and 13 touchdowns, setting a school record for completion percentage. He ran for over 500 yards and 11 scores, and recorded 39 tackles and 2 interceptions on defense. Max Sullivan, Somers. No player in the section had bigger shoes to fill this season than Sullivan, who stepped into the role as starting quarterback for a state champion. But Big Mac delivered. The 6'3" senior posted jaw-dropping numbers, throwing for over 2,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, and rushing for 12 scores, to lead the Tuskers to back-to-back state championships. A lacrosse commit headed to Towson University, Sullivan threw for a season-high 4 touchdowns in the state final at the Dome, and didn't throw an interception in any of the state playoff games. Ryan Vogel, Yorktown. Vogel was a 2-year starter at linebacker who played smart, instinctive, and with explosiveness. He produced all year all over the field and every week on defense, registering 71 tackles, 14 for loss, with 2 sacks and 4 interceptions for one of Class A's best units. Vogel is committed to play lacrosse at Siena College. Jake Wilson, Yorktown. Few teams had a player who could line up and muscle with Wilson, a 6'3", 300-pounder. So opposing teams usually needed 2 players. With great feet and strong technique, Wilson swallowed up all the defenders in front of him to spearhead a Yorktown line that's keyed Class A's highest scoring offense. 2023 Class A Player of the Year. Ryan Cole, Somers. You want to talk legacies? Well, here's Ryan Cole's. In 3 varsity seasons, Cole posted 23 sacks, 132 tackles, won 3 section and 2 state championships, all thanks to a defense that overwhelmed opponents up front. Cole was a centerpiece of that, earning Section 1 Class A Player of the Year honors this season, where he saw nothing but double teams coming at him. Big number 99 had 12 sacks in the year, including 3 in the state quarters and 4 in the state semifinal. In the state playoffs, he posted 17 total tackles, including 9 for loss. One of the most physically imposing and toughest players to come to the area in some time, Cole expects to play college football next season.